about our workplace that leads us to feel this kind of stress?
So we actually asked Canadians across the country if they were feeling stressed at work. And we were really surprised to find out over 60% actually said, yes, not only am I stressed, but the stress is negatively impacting my life and my health, which is, pretty scary when we think about what these consequences could be.
Michelle, this is Christine here. I was not surprised by those results. Why? What is it about work that is stressing us out? Is it that we don't love what we do, or is it that we're working too long, or what is it?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of demands on us. Personally, as a new mom, I have a baby. He's a year and a half now, and it's wonderful. But we're balancing as women. We have this jobs, careers, a family, and it becomes a lot. And our health can really take the brunt of this stress, especially time over a long period of time.
So what are you suggesting? Because you're the in-house nutritionist, holistic nutritionist for the Canadian Health Food Association. So I'm assuming that food plays a part.
It definitely does. And so at the Canadian Health Food Association, we actually developed a natural guide to workplace wellness to really help Canadians cope with some of the stress that they're dealing with on a constant basis. So the workplace wellness guide includes, information on different foods to eat, on supplements to take, on exercise, and on mindfulness. A lot of tips and tricks that we can use to try and incorporate into our day to make us healthier and to cope with some of this stress and the impact that it ultimately has on our body.
Regardless of what you eat, drink, supplements you take, exercise, can that reduce the stress, or are we simply talking about managing?
It definitely can. It plays an impact for sure. I mean, when we think about the nutrients in our body and how we're able to cope with stress, we know that B vitamins, for example, really help us cope with stress. And we know that over time, the more stressed we are, the more our B vitamins can be depleted. So we want to make sure, we're making sure that we're supplementing properly. Magnesium as well. We know that when we take magnesium, it actually helps to calm and helps to relax us. So making sure that our body is well-rounded with these important nutrients. And, often I recommend taking a multivitamin, for example, because we can become deficient in some of these nutrients that our body actually needs. And a multivitamin is a good way to kind of round out and help us with any kind of deficiencies that might not allow our body to cope as well with the stress that we're dealing with on a constant basis.
What about external things that we do, getting slightly away from supplements, but things we ingest? Like, I was dealing with a bunch of stress, pardon me, and anxiety, and I knocked out caffeine, and I knocked out refined sugar.
And that's great,
and
good for you.
Big difference in quite short time.
And that's amazing, and a huge difference. And it's amazing, especially when it comes to refined sugar, how much we're hearing about the negative impact that it actually has on our body and on our health. So when it comes to refined sugar, we know that, especially when we're eating a lot of it, we're going to get on that sugar roller coaster of the high followed by the spike, and that has a really big impact on our body and how we're dealing with this stress.
Yeah, and the caffeine thing, I found that the number one place that I would have coffee or tea or something high in caffeine was at work.
Yeah,
and I kind of married the two things together. I'm drinking decaf now, so I'm still enjoying my coffee.
Yeah,
but I've eliminated that, and I would find I would start my day with probably a couple of cups of coffee at work. And then anything, and you don't realize till you come off it just how much of an impact it really had.
It's true, and it's amazing, and that's why as part of this natural guide, this workplace wellness natural guide, we have other tips like mindfulness. There's a lot of research being done on mindfulness and the importance of incorporating more mindfulness into our day. So things like meditation, taking that time to actually to take a minute to realize what's actually going on around me, becoming more mindful has a huge impact.
So mindfulness, would that include, for example, a 10-minute power nap?
It could to some degree. Normally when we talk about mindfulness, we think about still being awake. Because mindfulness is more about, taking the time to stop, often, we're on that hamster wheel of running and running all day, and we have all these thoughts, and, we become more and more stressed, and it's taking a moment to focus on our breath, that breath-body connection, taking a few deep breaths. Research shows that when we meditate, it actually reduces stress, makes us more calm, and also increases creativity.
What about taking a walk around the office for 5 minutes?
Exactly, and that's another great way that we can incorporate more mindfulness, and really, thinking about that walk, focusing on the walk as opposed to what you have to do when you get back to your desk or the emails that you have to answer. It's really about the detachment and focusing kind of on the here and now and what's actually happening around me in this moment.
I think some people have to, it's hard sometimes to come to terms with the idea that mindfulness doesn't have to be something guided by a leader.
Exactly.
It's something that you can learn to do, and there's simple exercises.
It's so many, and there's even, you can go on YouTube and you can download and listen to something, or there's all kinds of great apps as well, so it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be an hour, half an hour,
people think
minutes.
of mindfulness as yoga, which is led by someone who's guiding you through a practice, and so I find there's two schools of thought that if you're not recognizing and understanding what mindfulness really is. There are two schools of thought, one being that, well, I need someone leading me and I need someone guiding me and it takes a long time. The other school of thought going, well, that's really hippy-dippy and I don't want to do it.
Exactly.
And that will give you more stress.
It's so true. It really is, but there's lots of great options. And, going back to your idea of going for a walk, I mean, we know, again, when we're talking about stress in the workplace, exercise plays a huge role. And, we've all heard sitting is the new smoking, and the dangers that involves. And so making sure we're incorporating more exercise into our day is also really, really important.
This is what she said, and we're talking to the in-house holistic nutritionist for the Canadian Health Food Association, Michelle Book, about a survey associating work with stress with health, ultimately. Mm-hmm. Does social media play any part in this, meaning to stay away from it, to get off your phone, to get away from the computer?
It does and it doesn't. There is some people out there who think that when it comes to social media, it can be a good advocate for yourself in terms of getting onto a better routine, and really oftentimes we have a lot of friends on Facebook and Twitter, and when we share those victories, when we share I packed a healthy lunch today, or I got up and went for a walk at lunch, and a lot of friends like or encourage us, and so that can have, I think, a positive impact and can help us ultimately stay on track. The other side of it is that we can see maybe other people doing it and think, I should be doing that, or, there's added pressure. So I think it's really finding out that balance. If you can turn it into a positive thing, I think it's a good idea.
Some people suggest that you put time limits on how much time you spend on social media. And I'm not just talking about Facebook and looking at pictures. I'm talking about work emails where they're not urgent. So you just say at a certain point, I'm done, and I'll start again tomorrow morning.
Yeah. And I think that it comes down to, how you manage your day, how you manage your stress, and what you do ultimately that you find works the best for you. And I think it's different for everyone, but at the end of the day, we really need to realize that we are quite stressed. And the stress, chronic stress over a long period of time, has a serious negative impact on our health. And, we need to be doing what we can through mindfulness, through exercise, through supplementation, and through food. Making sure we're eating the right kinds of food throughout the day is extremely important.
Well, this impacts our health individually, but it can impact the health of a family as a unit as well.
Yeah, exactly. And, especially when it comes to, if we have a bad day at work and we come home and, for me, again, being a mom, it's hard because, you're exhausted, you're stressed out. You have to, your family ultimately are the ones that are going to have to deal with those behaviors and those issues and that, so you want to make sure that you are doing what you can. And I think being healthy is something that's very important, especially when it comes to food. So going back to the family, making sure that the family has the proper diet is really, really important. Making sure we're eating good food is going to help, again, manage that stress. Adding, whole grains, complex carbohydrates, good fats, and eating a well-balanced diet is really important.
Well, I would think also managing our own stress is we're modeling behaviors for our children.
Exactly.
And we're going to be raising a generation of super stressed people because they're seeing us do it, and it looks like what's normal.
It's so, ultra busy has become the new norm, and we're in a society where it's go, 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 busy, busy, busy all the time. And so, that example is exactly what's being modeled, and it's becoming a huge problem. And so going back to our natural guide for workplace wellness, at the Canadian Health Food Association, we really have found that making sure that we can incorporate more of a healthy, holistic lifestyle. Again, it comes back to thinking about the whole family, the whole health. What are we putting in our body? What supplements are we taking? What are we doing that's helping us to be healthy on an ongoing basis and dealing with this stress?
What about getting involved at your office and suggesting to some team leaders to incorporate some of these things in, just the culture, because it's often the culture that leads to it too.
It's, and that's a really a great point. And I mean, I think that we all have had different jobs where sometimes we deal with a stressful situation, and often it's the people that we work and that we engage with on a daily basis that impact our lives and our happiness and how happy we are at work. So I think that from an office culture perspective, there's lots of opportunities for maybe adding more healthy activities. So, for example, even snacks, even office snacks, because again, when we're going back to what we're eating throughout the day, we know that we're grabbing a lot of those sugary drinks, those refined complex or those quick pastries and cookies and cakes. So having healthy snacks in the office, setting an office culture where, hey, let's go out for a walk at lunch. Or, let's have a salad club where we all bring one ingredient for a salad and we all make a salad.
Oh, that's a good idea.
You bring lettuce and you bring cucumbers and you bring some nuts and, we can make a big salad or even soup. There's a lot of offices I've heard more and more they're making having a soup club. So each month, you all make a big pot of soup, put it in different mason jars, and then you switch off. So then, you can have some soup in your fridge for lunch, or you can also put it in your freezer for later on in the month or week, when you might have time to make your own lunch.
It seems to me it would be a lot easier to combat stress if you're doing it as a team.
Exactly, and that's a really good point. And, when we get together, especially, when we're in an office, day in and day out, we want to be relying on each other and working together and building exactly that office culture that's going to help us all be successful.
So if someone's listening at home going, there's a lot of great ideas and I want to learn, how can someone start to actually focus and learn more about what they need to do? Where can they go?
Well, a great place to start is on our website, the Canadian Health Food Association, CHFA.ca. We have all kinds of information on our workplace wellness guide and, how to incorporate a lot more of these tips into your life. And I mean, I think ultimately it's about starting small. Making those small changes. Often we know we're stressed, but it becomes we become even more stressed because we think about how much we have to do, right? And it becomes a lot. So, picking one or two things and, trying to incorporate those and then adding another one or two things. And, before you know it, there'll be big changes.
You'll have room to breathe.
Exactly.
Very important. Well, Michelle, it's been great having you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Michelle Book, and stay with us. Christine and I will be right back after the break with more on What She Said on SiriusXM Canada Talks, Channel 167.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.